What's up everybody, it's your boy Birdie, and today we're going to be doing a little tutorial on how to make a custom ability in Source 2. We're going to make it completely from scratch, not using the data-driven abilities, but it's going to be coded in Lua. So we're going to obviously launch up the tools, and we're going to create an empty add-on called Super Strength. Super Strength is going to be the custom ability that we're going to create, and all it's going to do is boost the strength of your unit using a modifier. So we'll be learning a bunch of things to do this. So we have it selected, and then we go launch workshop tools, and they sit there and do their thing. Now what happens when you create an add-on is if you go to your DotA directory, so DotA 2 beta, and then we go to game and DotA add-ons, then you'll see here there's now a new folder called Super Strength. The reason this is important is because unfortunately the editor does not yet have any trigger editor the way StarCraft and Warcraft 3 campaign editors had a trigger editor, so you have to code everything by hand. But that's alright, so we'll go back to the asset browser, which is, browsers assets, and also lets us see all of the tools available to us. And we've got the Hammer map editor, and we're going to be using that to open up this map here. And you can use that editor to compile and build new maps, and we'll do that once we've created our ability. Before we do that though, we have to actually go and create the ability. So back in our folder here, if we open up the scripts folder, we have NPC and vscripts. Now what these are the NPC essentially contains lists of things you defined with not really much information as to what they do, but just where they are. And vscripts contains the actual Lua scripts, which we'll be using to make cool stuff happen. So what we'll do to begin with is we'll open up NPC abilities custom.txt, and I'm using Notepad++ to modify that. Now this here is the sample text, which is already here for a custom ability, and we'll be basically replacing this. We'll just start with it to begin with, just to give us something to work with. So we'll get rid of all this stuff here, ability special, which we'll learn about in a more advanced tutorial, so we won't worry about that. So we can get rid of that. We'll leave the mana cost, but let's make it something like 20. And a cooldown, yeah, we'll go like 10 seconds at level 1, 12 at level 2, 14, 16, so make it even worse the more you get the spell. Cast point, we'll leave it at 0, so that just means it's cast immediately, and in fact you can get rid of that if you want to, and by default it will be 0. Now ability unit damage type we don't need, because obviously we're just boosting the strength of our hero, so we really don't need that. Now this stuff here, ability behavior, is where it starts to get a little bit interesting. So if we open up our browser and go to the link here, which I will link to you in the future in the description of the video, there is a whole lot of information. Now unfortunately there's not really that many good tutorials, but there is quite a lot of information, and we'll be looking at data-driven abilities is the top one here. It's also in the scripting API, but it doesn't have descriptions, so ignore all the stuff here because we don't really care about that. What we want to go to is this bit here which says behavior flags. Now if we go back to our script, there's ability behavior, and then it says ability behavior no target, ability behavior immediate, separated by a pipe. Now if we go back to our browser, you can see that these here, no target is here and immediate is here, so it can be used instantly without going into the action queue. That just means that you don't have to cast any animation or anything, it just instantly fires the spell. So for our super strength we will use that, and no target means there's no target to click on basically, so you just press it and it fires the spell. We also want that, so that's pretty good. We could put on toggle afterwards and see what it does, so we can toggle on and off strength, which would be super imber, but for now we'll just leave it as it is in the script here. You can pipe multiple of these behaviors together, but obviously you don't want to pipe stuff together that doesn't make any sense, so try not to do that. Now back in our script here, we want to we want to give it a base class for our new ability. The reason we want to do this is because there's two types of base classes, and the first one is data something or other, data ability or something like that, which is for data driven abilities. We don't care about that. We want to do ability underscore lure. Before I go any further, I should explain to you why we have this format here and what it all means. So this is a key value file essentially, and so this is the key DotA abilities, and inside it there's the value, and then this is another key, and this is a value 1, so that's the version. Here's a key for spell, which we're going to rename all this stuff, we'll do that later, and then here's a key base class, and then the value, which is ability lure, so and so on and so forth for all of these. So that's basically how Source 2 controls all its data, all its information, not the actual functionality, which is done in Lua, but just with this here, it's for storing information. So we have to create our own key value pairs to be able to make stuff happen. So of course we've got our base class here, and that means that it's going to be a lure ability, not just a copied one from above. We'll rename this here to super underscore strength underscore lure, and we'll go something like, we'll put this on Abaddon, and the reason we do that is because he's the first hero in the list, so we don't have to scroll anywhere. Super strength, very good. Now what else do we need to do? Cast point, mana cost, cooldown. Yep, that's about all we need to do in this file. So that's basically created our well, it's said that somewhere there exists an ability called Super Strength Lure, and it's the lure ability, and here's how it works. Now we have to actually code the functionality, so to do that we'll create a new file, and we'll save as, and instead of an NPC we want to be in vscripts. So in vscripts we obviously want to save as a lure file, which is one of these, and we'll call it super underscore strength underscore lure dot lure. So this is where we actually code the functionality. Now before I do that, there's one thing I forgot to do, which is in here we have to actually tell it what file to look in to be able to get the instructions as to what to actually do. So we create a key, and this has to be script file, oops, that's a typo, and then the script file value, so key and value pair, remember that, is super underscore strength underscore lure. We don't have to put the dot lure at the end, it automatically works that out itself. And then we'll save that. Okay, so in our actual ability file, we need to start it off with creating, but this is a lure thing, and you'll learn about that when you learn lure yourself, but for now you can just copy it and not worry too much. So we go super strength lure equals class parentheses curly braces parentheses, and what this does is just basically creates a class called super strength lure, which is going to have some functions inside it which get called by the Source 2 engine. We don't really have to worry too much about that. This is just as long as it's consistent. I believe it has to be consistent with this here. I could be wrong though, but I believe it has to be a consistent name. Other than that we don't have to worry. Now let's have a think about what our ability is going to do. It's going to create a modifier on our hero, like a buff, and that there is what's going to do the thing, right? So this is actually a particular object in Source 2 called a modifier, and if we're going to have a modifier, not every ability has to have a modifier, but if we do have one, we need to actually register it. So before we do that, let's actually create a file for the modifier. So we go new file and save as, and we'll click super strength lure, but we want to call it modifier super strength lure, like that. And so now we've got super strength lure is the information as to how it works, and then the modifier, which is what it's going to apply. So we save that, and now we have our two things. And this here we do the same thing as we go modifier super, oh I can't type today, strength Lua equals class. That's just so that inside here it knows what to actually do. Now we'll leave the modifier for now, but before we continue we have to, in our super strength Lua file, we have to register the modifier so that when source2 looks for a modifier to apply, it actually knows that the modifier super strength Lua exists. So to do that, there's a little function called link Lua modifier, which, as you can imagine, links the modifier, and it's a Lua modifier. So inside here we put the name of our modifier, which is modifier super strength. Oh, can't spell Lua. Don't have to put the .lua at the end. That's fine. And then here we just put Lua. Modifier motion none. And that's because we don't have a motion setted. Oh, that shouldn't be in quotes. Sorry, that's a mistake. Okay, cool. So this here's got a few other options. Again, we'll look at this in a later tutorial. For now, we're not too worried about it. So this stuff here is pretty much, you won't need this line if you don't have a modifier, but if you do, you just link the modifier. Pretty straightforward. This here is going to be at the top of, I think, all of our Lua files, so make sure you have that. Now, Lua as a scripting language, of course, has got functions, and we're going to use a function to actually do something when the spell is cast. So we type function to say we're making a function, and then here we have to make sure we copy the class name to say that this is a function that belongs to this class here, which we are coding here. So we've got super strength Lua, and then we go colon on spell start. Now it does have to be this function name, we can't make our own, I believe. And what this does, as you can imagine, is that when the spell is started, that is to say when we cast the spell, this is what's going to happen, and we'll actually code here what happens. Put end at the end, and inside this function we can do a whole lot of things. So for a start, let's just type print hello, well no, okay, let's go, not hello world, we go super strength applied. Now this will be put into the console, and we'll see that later again, but for now you can put whatever you want in there. You can say hello world or hi mom or anything you like. Now the other thing you can do inside functions is you can declare variables to store information. So you type local to say it's a local variable that nothing else outside of this function can access, and then we'll call it something like caster. Okay, so we'll declare caster and say it equals self.getCaster. Now self.getCaster will get the caster of the spell basically, and put it in this local variable here called caster, so we can use that in later commands. So all our ability has to actually do is apply the modifier to itself. And in this case we actually know what itself is because we just made this caster here. So that defines what caster spell, and we only want to apply it to him. Now what you could do is you could actually search for surrounding enemies, targeted enemies, surrounding allies, targeted allies, and so on, and use them as the target, but because we want to just apply strength to ourselves, we'll just go onto caster. So all we have to do is go caster dot add new modifier. Very simple, makes a lot of sense. We're going to add a new modifier to him, and then inside here we have 4 different things that we have to send through to this function. So the first thing is, I think it is the person that you're applying the modifier to. In this case we're applying it to caster. I could be wrong here. Either way, we just put caster here, self here, and here we put the name of the modifier, which, as you all know about now, I'm sure, is modifier. Oops. Super strength loss. I'll just click that. So that's the modifier that's going to be added to the caster, which is the person casting the spell. Easy peasy. And the only other thing we put in is we'll put in a duration. So inside here we're going to put an array, and it's going to contain duration equals 8. Oops, that's 9. Oh no, that's 9, but whatever, we'll change it back. End bracket and end colon. And that's basically all we have to do in this particular file. Just like that. It's very easy. Now, at the moment though, the modifier actually does nothing, so that's a bit useless. I mean, if I believe this will all work, and you can go to Hammer and you can compile the map and run it, and it should add an ability, and you'll be able to cast it, and it will do nothing for 8 seconds. That's no use to anybody. So we'll go over to our modifier file, and here we're going to actually create the functionality. So the first thing that you're going to do for pretty much every modifier is create a function called function. Now again, this is inside this class file, so we put the name of the class, colon, and then we go declare functions. Oops. Okay, so this function here is it's got I'm gonna have to show you basically what it does. Is if we go back to our wiki here and we go back one page, so we go to the scripting API. Now this has got a massive amount of information, like wow. But if we go back up to the table of contents, what we want to look for is something to do with modifiers. DotA modifier lure. I believe it's that one. It might not be. We'll find out. So let's click that. Is this what we want? No, this is not what we want. Oh, okay. Go back up to the table of contents modifier. It's in constants, I think. Modifier function. Here we go, modifier function. So, if we look back at our script, we're declaring some functions, and we want to know what functions to declare. So these are all the different modifiers, essentially, that you can apply. So let's just have a look at a couple of them. We can change the invisibility level of someone. So we could make something like like for example Bounty Hunter. He's got a spell which makes him go invisible. We can make movement speed be increased. We can increase attack speed, increase evasion, make them avoid damage or avoid spells, give them bonus mana. But what we want to do is increase strength. So if you look here, there's modifier, properties, stats, strength, bonus. So that's what we're going to use. So we just copy that there and go here and paste it here, and we actually have to put this inside. Actually we don't have to might not have to do this, but because we only have one, we might not have to do this, but we'll do this anyway. Is we'll create an array. An array is just like a list of stuff. If you guys don't know how to program, it's just a list of stuff. So we put these brackets around an array like that, and then inside it we put a list of all the modifier properties that we want to modify. So you could have, going back to here, you could have all of these if you wanted to, probably. Yeah, you probably could. So we could have like a super spell which makes you just amazingly awesome. Anyway, so we don't need to make us super awesome, we just need to make us super strength. So there's the stat strength bonus, and finally the function is called, that means it's run by a I believe it's run by this here actually when we go add new modifier, and we actually have to pass through some information. So we type return, which means when this function is finished it will return some information, and we are going to just return funcs, which is our array. We could call this, for example, funcs array, just so everybody knows what it is. funcs array, and then end the function. So that there is cool. So now it knows that it's going to be modifying this. Now whenever you do actually go and modify, add a modifier property, you have to have a resulting function which explains how much you're going to modify that thing by. So we have to create another function here, function, and this is modifier superstrength lure in that class, same as before, colon, and then if we go back to this here and we go to where is it, stat strength bonus, and you see over here it has a description and it says get modifier bonus stat strength. So what this actually means is that this is the modifier property and this is the function name that we have to override to make it do stuff. So going back to our code, we're going to make a function here called that get modifier bonus stat strength. So that just gets how much that it just returns a number that is how much bonus strength we're going to go. So we go end here, and here we just type return, and you can do whatever number you want. What we could actually have done is inside here we can put a number and make this here return that number, and that means that we can have different numbers for different levels and things like that. But for now we're just going to go 100 bonus strength, and that's pretty good. Lots of bonus strength. That's what, 190, 1900 extra health, I believe, is the defaults. You can actually modify those too, but we won't worry about that. So there is our custom ability is declared and says it exists and given a cast point, cooldown, mana cost, and so on. Then we declare the script file for it. In the script file we link the modifier for it and we print out that the super strength is applied, and then add the modifier to the spellcaster. The actual modifier, all it does is say we want to modify the stat strength bonus property and we want to make that go up by 100. We could actually make it go down as well. That'd be lots of fun, wouldn't it? But anyway, we don't need to worry about that. So go back to Hammer at the bottom right. So Hammer is the map editor, and I'll do a separate tutorial on all that. But for now, just press F9 and it will come up with this compilation shenanigans. We'll go create minimap. Yep, that's cool. And we want to build all of these things the first time. After you've done the first one, you can actually, if you're only modifying the script files and so on, you can just go to only entities and just build the entities. But for what we want to do everything, because this is the first compilation. So while this is compiling, and it will take a little while, particularly if you have a potato PC, go back to the asset browser and click this icon here, which is the console. So this here is basically, it prints out a whole lot of information whenever something happens, and if we go back to our script file, we have a print here, and that print there will appear inside our console if everything goes according to plan. Yeah, so it will print super strength applied if we cast the spell. So if we go back to Hammer, it's just generating it here, and it will, if you have these console commands set, which you probably do, because these are the defaults, then you will have it automatically launched in your Dota 2 game here. So it does a whole bunch of cool stuff here, like ray tracing and all that, but you only have to do that once if you haven't modified the map. Some of these things you'll be able to work out that you can disable some of them just for a quicker compile. So if you do just only entities, then it will be a lot faster than all this here, because you only have to compile basically all the script files and add them to the map. So we sit here and wait patiently. There should be a follow-up tutorial which will go into some more advanced stuff you can do with the scripts, because this is obviously pretty basic. We're just adding a simple modifier and it's the same every level and so on, but we can actually add a whole lot of cool stuff, like maybe we'll do something like the opposite of Shadowfiend's Requiem. Anyway, so now it automatically loads up the Dota, and oh, you can see my stuff. And it'll just sit here for a little while. It might come up with a thing saying it's going to hang, and we don't need to worry about that. It'll just sit there and then it should go away if everything is done. So there it says hang detected, sits there for a little while, and then it will actually start to load it. This only happens the first time you build a map, I believe. You can just close that if that comes up. I haven't worked out what that is yet. I'll have to find out. And we can actually get rid of this entire waiting screen and jump directly into the map, but that'll be in another tutorial. So for now we just go lock and start. Oh, you know what we forgot? We forgot something. Oh no. Alright, so we're locking Abaddon and it won't have changed him. And the reason for that is, if you recall in the list of stuff we did, we never actually modified Abaddon. We only made a list of stuff, and that's because I got sidetracked. So let's go back to our scripting. And there's one more file we have to modify. So we go open and go to scripts, NPC. NPC Heroes Custom. So this is where we actually modify Abaddon. So we'll change, this is just a comment, but we may as well put it here, Abaddon. And this here, we'll call it Abaddon Super Strength. And here we want to put the name. So this here can be whatever, this comment can be whatever you want. You can put all sorts of information there. But here we want to override a hero, and this is not for creating new heroes, it's just for overriding existing ones. So we want to modify just the end part here where it says Templar Assassin and just change that to Abaddon. Now what we can do here is we can actually modify every single ability and add more than one ability as well. So I think we can go up to, like, I haven't tested how far you can go up to, but I've seen at least 6 abilities on one person before. Or one hero, so you can have all these abilities and then their equivalent key value value to the key. So these are keys, and then you put a value which is the ability. So in our case we want to do Super Strength Lure, and we'll put it in ability 1, and we'll get rid of this here, that is just for the example. So there's our 4 abilities, and we've actually wiped out all of his other abilities here. If I got rid of these, he'd still have his normal 3 abilities, like his W, E, and R, but only his first ability would change. But here we're actually going to wipe out all the other ones, and then we'll save that. And then we go to Hammer, and now this time we're going to only entities and build entities, and go build. Okay, so I actually just tested, and I made 3 spelling mistakes. So the first one is in Super Strength Lure. This is one of the problems with programming like this as compared to using a trigger editor, is that you can make mistakes much more easily. You just need one bracket in the wrong place and everything breaks. So the V console will actually tell you that. Like we can see here, this further up there is some errors. If we go up, yeah, there's some errors, and that there is why what you can use to bug test this. But anyway, the first error that was here is self.getCaster should be self::getCaster, and caster.addNewModifier should be caster::addNewModifier. If you know Lua, then you'll know why that is. If you don't worry about it, just realize that. And then if we go to modifier, the other problem was the get modifier bonus stat strength function. You have to put some parentheses here and put params in as the parameter. We're not actually passing anything through, but you typically would put that there just in case you did want to pass information through and then act on it. So if we save those 3 changes and then go to Hammer and build it, which I've already just done, then we can actually test our ability. So we go here and we see Abaddon has got a new ability and he's lost his other ones, as I said would happen, and we lock in that. And if we look at the ability here, it says the cooldown 10, 12, 14, 16, 20 mana cost. So we level it up, and then our strength is currently 23, 587 health, and we cast it and it goes up to 100, and we get massive amounts of health. And here's the duration, and then the duration finishes, and a couple of seconds later this comes off cooldown and we can cast it again. Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing, Mario. So that concludes this tutorial. It was a little bit long, but we had a lot of stuff to cover. In the future tutorials I will skip over some of that as we've already covered it here, and we'll go into more complex information. Hope I'll see you guys next time, and feel free to pass on the word. Peace out.